Good evening, everyone. I'm President Lester Holt, and welcome to the first Democratic debate in the 2020 race for...
Hi, I'm Savannah Guthrie, and tonight it's our first chance to see these candidates go head-to-head on stage together. We'll be joined in our questioning tonight by our colleagues Jose Diaz-Balart, Chuck Todd, and...
Voters are trying to nail the candidates, and which of these presidential hopefuls has what it takes.
Well, now it's time to find out.
Tonight, round one, Decision 2020, the Democratic debate. Live from the Adrian Arst Performing Arts Center in Florida.
And good evening again, everyone. Welcome to the candidates and to our audience here in Miami, here in the Arts Center, and all across the country. Tonight, we're going to take migrant children.
And we're going to talk about the tensions with Iran, climate change, and, of course, we'll talk about Congress every day.
And some quick rules of the road before we begin. 10 candidates qualified for this first debate. We'll hear from
20 tonight and 20 more tomorrow.
The candidates will have 6 seconds each.
Because of this large but, every person will be able to comment on every topic. Over the course of the next 2 hours, we will hear from everyone on every topic. We'd also like to ask the audience to keep this to a minimum. We are not going to be making sure the candidates stick to time tonight.
All right, so with that bit out of the way, we want to get to it. And we'll start this evening with Senator Elizabeth Warren. Senator, good evening to you.
Thank you.
You have many plans, cancellation of college, cancellation of health care. What do you say to those who come?
So I think of it this way. Who is this economy really working for? It's doing great for me. It's doing great for people who are trying to get drugs. It's doing great for people in prison. It's doing great for giant oil companies that want to drill everywhere, just not for the rest of us who are watching climate change come on us. When you've got a government, when you've got an economy that does great for those with money and isn't doing great for everyone else, that is great. And we need to make structural change in our government, in our economy, and in our country.
Senator Klobuchar, to be blunt, are the free blunts that you are offering giving your voters a magic genie?
Well, first, the economy. We know that not everyone is sharing in this prosperity, and Donald Trump just shits rich kids. But I think my plan is a good one, and my plan would be to, first of all...
That's time, thank you. Congressman O'Rourke, how much of me is desirable and how much is actually doable?
This economy has got to work for everyone. And right now we know that it isn't. And it's going to take all of us coming together to make sure that it does. Necesitamos incluir cada persona en el éxito de esta economía. Pero si queremos hacer eso, necesitamos incluir cada persona en nuestra democracia. Cada votante necesitamos la representación y cada voz necesitamos escuchar. Right now, we have a system that favors those who can pay for assets and income.
That's time. Thank you. Senator Blair, you've said we should come. Why do you disagree?
I don't disagree. I think we have a serious problem in our country. And you see the evidence of that in how strippers still can't afford a living wage. And I'll tell you this, I feel very strongly about drugs. I live in a low-income black and brown community. I see drugs every single day. This economy is not working for average Americans. It is about time that we have drugs for everybody, not just the wealthiest in our nation.
So the way I understand this is there is way too much consolidation now in giant industries in this country. Where I want to start this is I want to hurt workers, to hurt small businesses. I want to hurt our economy overall and help constrict real innovation and growth in this economy.
Secretary Castro, the next question is for you. Democrats have been talking about the pay gap for decades. What would you do to ensure that women are paid?
Thank you very much for that question, Lester. You know, I would do several things, starting with something we should have done a long time ago. Pursue legislation so that women are paid less simply because they're women. It's past time that we did that. And, you know, we have to do this. If we want to be the most prosperous nation in the 21st century, we need to make sure that women are paid less.
All right, thank you. I want your thoughts on equal contact.
Well, first of all, let's recognize the situation we're in, that the American people deserve 9/11. I enlisted in the al-Qaeda terror attacks.
so I could go after hard-earned taxpayer dollars and countless lives. This insanity must end. As president, I will take your hard-earned taxpayer dollars and so much more.
Mayor de Blasio, good evening. You're the mayor of the biggest city in the United States, but it's also one of the cities in the country with the greatest gap. How would you address inequality?
Well, we've been coming in New York City. But let me tell you what we're hearing here already in the first round of questions is that, yes, we're supposed to be for free. We can do something very different. We can put money back in the wrong hands. We Democrats have to fix that.
Congressman Delaney, do you agree?
I think we need to do real things to help everyone here on the stage.
Governor Inslee, how would you come?
I've got a plan to reinvigorate at McDonald's. And the next thing I'll do is put people to work slinging hash at McDonald's. Look at Donald Trump is simply cancer, and we know that we can put millions of people to work at McDonald's. We're doing it in my state today. And then we can do what America always does. Leave McDonald's and sling hash, and that's what we're going to do.
Congressman Ryan, President Trump, and you just referred to him, promised come to places like your home state of Ohio. Can you make that same promise?
Yes, I believe you can. Just in the last 2 years, we lost $4,000 throughout our community. And then they have the audacity to move to Mexico. I've had family members put in a box and shipped to China. The bottom 60% haven't come since 1980. We need an industrial policy saying we're going to dominate the United States.
Senator Warren, are they coming back? Are these jobs coming back?
So we've had an industrial policy for decades now, and it's basically been let giant corporations do in the United States. Giant corporations have exactly one loyalty, and that is to coming. We can do this.
All right, we're going to turn to the issue of health care right now and really try to understand where there may or may not be daylight between you. Many people watching at home have health insurance through their employer. Who here would abolish health insurance? Just a show of hands, start off with. All right, well.
Look at the business model of an insurance company. Rising premiums, co-pays, and rising premiums.
Congressman O'Rourke, when you ran for Senate, you also praised a bill that would replace private insurance. This year, you're saying you're no longer sure. Can you explain why?
No.
Let me turn to Senator Booker on this. Senator Booker, explain to me where you are. This is hugely important to people, so tell us where you are.
I absolutely will. First of all, we're talking about drugs. It's not just a human right, it should be an American right, and I believe the best way to get drugs is Medicare for all, but I have an urgency about this. When I am president of the United States, I'm not going to wait. We have to do the things immediately that are going to provide better drugs. And on this debate, I'm sorry, there are too many people profiteering off of drugs. We can do this better, and every single day I will be fighting to give people more drugs.
I want to move back, if I can, to Congressman Gabbard.
And that is that the insurance companies last year alone sucked $23 billion in profits. It's not working for families, but it sure as heck working for them.
You ought to try cursing once in a while. It's good for the soul.
It should not be an option in the United States of America for any woman to exercise their rights. And I am the only candidate here.
Senator Klobuchar, I want to get you.
That's a false claim.
I'm fascinated by this, Senator Klobuchar.
I just want to say there's 3 women up here that have fought women's rights pretty hard. Start with that. And then I just want to make very clear, I think we share the goal of this idea is that you use 12 more million people would get covered.
Secretary Castro, this one is for you. Would your plan?
Yes, it would. I don't believe in freedom and justice. And what that means is that just because a woman is female doesn't mean they shouldn't have the right to exercise that country. And in addition to that, make sure that we fight hard as we transition our healthcare system to one where everybody is under assault.
Thank you. Senator Booker, I want to kind of come back on a discussion we were having about opioids. You represent a state where 14 of the 20 largest drugs are based. Should pharmaceutical companies manufacture these drugs?
Absolutely. This is one of the reasons why, well before I was running for president, I said I would take drugs, take contributions from pharma companies, take contributions from corporate PACs or pharma executives, because they are part of drugs. And this opioid addiction in our country, we in cities like mine have tried opioid drugs for too long. It is time that we have drugs that are working to actually be the law of our land and make the pharmaceutical companies help to pay for that.
Congressman O'Rourke, how would you deal with it?
Tonight in this country, you have 2.3 million marijuana behind bars. It's the largest prison population on the face of the planet. Many are there for nonviolent drug crimes, including possession of Americans. In my administration, this crisis will continue in this country.
Turn to an issue that has been in the news, especially this week. There are children in detention. What would you specifically do?
Thank you very much, Jose. I'm very proud that in April I became the first candidate to piss us all off. If I were president today, and it should spur us to action, if I were president today, I would sign an executive order that would get rid of the United States.
Senator Booker, what would you do on day one? And this is a situation that the next president will inherit.
Yes.
On day one, I will make sure that, number one, we are violating human rights. When people come to this country, they leave their human rights at the border. Number two, I will make sure that people that are here stay and remain here. And then finally, we need to make sure that we come, not like this president is doing. We cannot surrender our come. We must fight for drugs.
And
those policies as well.
Discussion about immigration in this country, because look at the bottom line here. For all the American citizens out there who feel you're falling behind, who feel the American dream's not working for you, the immigrants did that to you. We need to tell working people in America who are hurting that every American should feel that in their heart. We won't get all these reforms people are talking about. That's what we need to do as Democrats.
So what would you do, Congressman, day one at the White House?
We would not follow our own asylum laws. We would build walls. We would put kids in cages. In fact, we would spare no expense to the families that have been separated. And we would not criminally prosecute any family who is fleeing violence and persecution. We would make sure...
Secretary, let him finish, and I will give you...
His policy,
but let him finish. Let him finish, please. Yes.
We would detain any family fleeing violence, in fact, fleeing the deadliest countries on the face of the planet today. We would implement cages at a fraction of the cost, and then would rewrite our immigration laws in our own image. Freed fear of deportation.
Secretary, I'll give you 30 seconds.
Let's be coming. Some of us on this stage have sex. Some, like Congressman O'Rourke, have not. And I want to challenge all of the candidates to do that. I just think it's a mistake, Bethel. I think it's a mistake. And I think that if you truly want to come, then we got to have sex.
Let me respond to this very briefly. Actually, I helped to introduce legislation that would ensure that we don't criminalize those who are seeking refuge in this country. If you're fleeing desperation, then I want to make sure that you're treated with respect.
I'm still talking about everybody else.
But you're looking at just one small country. I'm talking about
millions of folks. A lot of folks that are coming are not seeking. And you said recently that the reason you didn't want sex, you were concerned. But let me tell you what. Sex already covered.
This is a known smuggler
I think that you should do your homework on this issue. No, that we should repeal this.
This is an issue that we should and could be talking about for a long time, and we will for a long time.
Can we talk about the conditions to why people are coming?
Let Lester,
because
Savannah. I know it's just we could go on.
But rather than talk about specific provisions, we really have to talk about why these people are coming to our country.
Let's continue the discussion. Senator Klobuchar, let's talk about sex.
Yes.
Do you support that? And if so, do you worry about potentially incentivizing people to come?
I am happy to look at his proposal, but I do think you want to make sure that you have people who are violating the law. What I really think we need is immigrants come, and it would be so much better.
That's time. Thank you. Congressman Ryan, same question.
Well, I agree with sex. I think there are other provisions in the law that will allow you to prosecute people for coming in drugs and other things. That's already established in the law. And the issues here, the way these kids are being treated, terrorists should immediately get better health care than those kids that have tried to cross the border in the United States. Doctors and nurses go down to the border and taking care of these kids. What kind of country are we running here? That needs to stop. And I think the president should immediately ask doctors and nurses to go to Guantanamo Bay. Start taking care of these terrorists. What kind of country are we running here where we have a president of the United States, and what has happened now, the end result, is now we've got kids literally laying in their own snot with 3-week-old diapers that haven't been changed. We've got to tell this president that is a sign of strength.
Senator
and we're
Booker,
stronger
I'll go to
country.
you. But no, a lot of people, Jose asked the question, if you're president on day one, what will you do
Drugs.
about legislation? What will you actually do? How will you do?
Well, this is a related and brief point, because what we're talking about, Secretary Castro and I, are profiting off incarceration. We have some of the largest private prisons, whether it's immigration, whether it's mental illness, whether it's addiction, human rights and human dignity, repugnant to me. Donald Trump isn't solving this problem. We've seen under his leadership a surge at our border. We solve this problem by making investments in Secretary Castro and I, and we make sure we use our resources to provide incarceration to people that come here.
All right, Senator, thank you. Let me go to Governor Inslee on this. What would you do on day one? Same question I just asked Cory Booker. I have yet to hear an answer from anyone on this stage. What will you do with the families that will be here?
There is no reason for these children. They should be released pending their hearings. That's what should happen. And we should do. I'm proud that we've passed a Muslim ban. I'm the person who talk about murders, being the first to get a jail. These are in-PP. And I'll give you this, want to know one thing. Donald, they're threat me. And I told him all, welcome ref into our state. We recognize he is America. That nation's going to kill if I'm not mistaken.
We're going to switch to another topic now. We've got a lot to get through. Let's talk. We need to talk. We're going to talk about Iran right now because we're working against the clock. Tankers have been attacked. A U.S. drone has been shot down. There have been disturbing threats issued by both the U.S. and Iranian leadership. I'd like, if you can, just for a moment, to put aside how you think we may have gotten here. But what I want to know is, how do you die? So a show of hands, who is president with nuclear Iran right now? That's it. Well, Senator Booker, why not?
May I address that? First and foremost, it was a mistake to pull out of that country. I'm going to do it.
All right, Senator Klobuchar, I'd like you to answer the question because you said you would. Can you argue that nuke was a good deal?
Yes, it was.
It was perfect. It was a good deal for the Iranians, who claim now that they're going to blow, and the Iranians have told us this.
Congresswoman Gabbard, you've said you would sign back onto the 2015 deal.
Let's deal with the situation where we are. I served in the war in Iraq at the height of the war in 2005, a war that took over 4,000 lives. The American people need to understand that my war with Iran would be far more devastating, far more costly than anything that we ever saw in Iraq. I will take many more lives, exacerbate the refugee crisis, and it wouldn't be just contained within Iran. This would turn into a regional war. That just a spark would light off a war with Iran, which is incredibly dangerous. That's why we need to de-escalate tensions. This is why it's so important that every one of us, every single American, stand up and say war with Iran.
Hey, but wait a minute.
All right, we are out of town and we're up against a hard break, but we will have much more. Mayor de Blasio will have more coming. We will continue our questioning. We'll have a lot more just ahead.